The sixth key to engagement is perspective. Now, perspective works like this. Perspective is very mental. It's very mental. It's all about your mind, how you see the world around you, how you engage the world around you, and how you process information. Now, I want to open this up by talking about a little part of the brain called the RAS, the reticular activated system. And the RAS looks something like this. Anybody new car? Anybody buy a new car recently? Yeah. What kind of car?
A Dodge Caravan.
A Caravan. What color was it?
Red.
Red. So have you ever noticed after you bought your Dodge Caravan, do you ever notice all the other red Dodge Caravans on the road? Isn't that funny? Then why did they buy them all the same day as you did? Crazy thing. So what happens is your RAS is activated towards red Dodges. Okay, so you're saying, oh, there's another red Dodge. My gosh, there's another. My neighbors have a red Dodge Caravan. And so you start activating your sensation to see only that. You see that more than others. So like if your washing machine breaks, for example, all of a sudden you suddenly notice out of all those flyers, you notice the washing machine flyers. Like there's thousands of flyers, but you notice that washing machine flyer. So that's how the perspective thing works. And the tighter your perspective, the more right you want to be. And the more right you want to be, the more angry you get. The more angry you get, the more you shut out people. And the more you shut out people, the more you disengage because they don't want to be around you. See the little formula, kind of like a domino effect there? So I want to talk about perspective and introduce to you the concept of the 10-90 principle. Life can be seen as 10% what happens to you. Okay, that stuff happens. People take your money. You have car accidents. You get married. You get divorced. You have kids. The kids get sick. The kids, go to school. The school burns down. Like stuff happens, right? That's 10% of what life can be seen. But to be a person with a leadership perspective, that's an open mind. It might be an interesting formula to see life as 10% what happens to you, and 90% how you think about it. How you think about it. Pretty powerful stuff. Now, if you think about that for a sec, you probably know someone that's got it backwards. Do anybody that's got that backwards? 90% has been done to them, and 10% is what they say about it is usually just complaining, just grumping around and complaining. Well, that's a mental framework, and that's fine. That's their journey. I'm not judging that. What I'm just saying is, if you want to have more engagement, it might be better to take on stuff that happens to you in your work or in your life and have a bigger perspective. So let me tell you a story that goes with this. I was married. I met my girlfriend. Well, let me back up. Andy and I dated 18 years ago. We met at the St. Martin's Folk Festival last couple summers ago, after 18 years of not seeing each other, and got back together, and we got married in 2007, July 7, 2007. We were the only couple in Canada getting married that day. And we tried for a baby. So we were doing the old monthly thing, honey, come on down, come out for work, what? So the old monthly thing, and if you've ever been trying for a kid, it's like an emotional roller coaster, right? It's up and down, up and down, up and down, those stupid test strips, waiting for that dumb little thing to light up and not light up and whatever, right? So we had a miscarriage in September of 07. We tried for in vitro in May of what's today? Last year. May of 08, we tried in vitro, and that's a crazy process in itself. And that didn't work, so we actually gave up. We said this isn't going to work, and we didn't think about adoption because adoption is like a 7-year wait and all this kind of stuff, right? So we decided to get a puppy instead, because you get the same thing. You get the poopy diapers, you get the you get the same kind of thing, the same zone with the puppy. So we got a puppy, and the puppy came home the Labor Day weekend in September. But we got a call. We got a call from my wife's sister, who is a twin. They're twin sisters, so they kind of think alike. And the call was this. Now, what would you do if you got this phone call? Here it was. Angela, my wife's twin sister, calls up and said, what would you do if a baby dropped in your lap? And we said, excuse me? What would you do if a baby dropped in your lap? And we said, you got to tell us the story. And what had happened was, Angela knew a family whose 16-year-old daughter was having a baby. She chose to keep the baby. She didn't want to go through the government services and red tape, and she had this idea about red tape, so she went to the Home of the Guardian Angel, and she was actually interviewing families for placement for her baby. She wanted someone that she could trust. And my sister-in-law wrote a profile on us, on Andy and I, submitted it to the mother, the birth mother, and her mother, so the birth grandmother, and they approved us. And we got the call saying, you got a baby. We're going, whoa. So the first thought is like, what the heck? That's going to be, wow, that's amazing. What a gift, like, phew, right? And then we went to meet the social worker. And I want to tell you where this 10-90 principle comes in, because 10% of the thing was this phone call. We got a baby. Baby's coming their way. Birth mother wants to finish high school. She wants to go to a college in Quebec and become a veterinarian, which is really cool. And she wants to do a thing with her life, and that's fine. I mean, she could do it with a kid too, but it'll be different. So that's cool. So we went to the social worker, and the social worker said, before we go too far in this conversation, I want to be honest with you. 50% of the girls, the young moms who decide to have put an adoption plan in place actually change their mind after the baby's born. Okay, so that's information. That's 10% of that's information. My 90% reaction to that, you have two choices in this life about 90% reaction. They fall into two big categories. This is an engagement conversation. You can have an attitude of gratitude, open your heart, be thankful for what you got, or what I call stinking thinking. And stinking thinking is seeing the world as a scarce place, a place that things are going to go bad. Now I have to be honest with you folks, I started getting into some stinking thinking. I had a 50-50 chance, the birth mom was 50-50, I had a 50-50 chance to think either way. Gratitude or stinking thinking. What I started to do was start to go stinking thinking. So I took my mental perspective and tightened it up. See, you understand what I'm saying? I tightened it up. And I put on these little antennas that started looking for evidence that we weren't going to get the baby. And evidence piece number one was the birthday I gave her a ring. Now that's just an event, right? I didn't know which ring it was. I didn't know which finger she put it on. I later found out she put it on her right finger as opposed to her left finger, which could have meant something completely different. But my imagination, my stinking thinking went into, oh, this teenage couple's going to get together, they're going to raise a family. Too bad for us. Maybe good for the kid, I'm sure, but too bad for us. Stinking thinking number one. Stinking thinking number two is we bought the crib. And I got the crib home, and I kept the box. Just in case. Just a little piece of stinking thinking. Just a little piece of stinking thinking. And she was born November 28th last year, and she turned 6 months tomorrow. Oh, she's so freaking cute. We couldn't take her home for the first 2 weeks because by law, the birth mother has 2 weeks to change her mind. Now, can you imagine what a person has to go through who has stinking thinking? It's called hell, waiting for her to change her mind. And I remember driving home on December the 16th with my little baby. Oh, she's so freaking cute. A little baby in the backseat, my wife in the front. I remember driving on December the 16th. We picked up the baby. She'd signed the papers. The baby was home for us. I remember driving. It was a dark, dingy winter's day, dark clouds, wet sidewalks, by all definition a blah day. But in my heart, I was no longer sitting on joy. I was celebrating life, and my heart was literally a wide open rainbow of colors as I was driving down the thing, because it was a done deal. It was done. My stinking thing was over because there was nothing. There's no more proof. So, and by the way, I recycled the box. So I wanted to share that story because sometimes we get into stinking thinking patterns. When we get into a stinking thinking pattern, folks, we get disengaged from what's around us. In fact, if you try to give a new thing, a new idea, or a new suggestion to a person with stinking thinking, they're going to likely reject it because it doesn't fit their pattern. So the sixth key to engagement is perspective. And the best perspective you can possibly have is to figure out a way to find joy. And don't sit on joy, because my question is this: where do you sit on your joy? Where do you have a little bit of stinking thinking towards an activity or a person or something where you're sitting on joy? Because I mean, I didn't have a lousy time while the baby was coming to us. So it wasn't lousy, but there was just a little piece of me that was sitting on some joy, and the joy was released that day we drove her home. So that's my question for you: where do you sit on joy? Where do you have some stinking thinking that you might want to free up and get more of an attitude of gratitude? Because if you can't be grateful for it, it'll run you. Until you become grateful for it, it runs your life.